Hi, this is episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, in a series of podcasts for AP United States history students at St. John's School. I am Mr. Solomon. In this podcast, we will look at two other applications of chronological reasoning, with the continuities and changes over time question and the periodization question. As you listen, please take notes on these guidelines and bring any questions you may have to our class tomorrow. Let us remember that when formulating a response to any prompt, the same general format we've drawn up still applies when writing a multi-sentence thesis. In episode 2, we looked at causation and how chronological reasoning was employed then. Another way that students engage in chronological reasoning is by recognizing, analyzing, and evaluating the dynamics of historical continuity and change over periods of time of varying length, as well as the ability to relate these patterns to larger historical processes or themes. Proficiency in this form of chronological reasoning starts with identifying patterns of continuity and change over time, but also moves on to explain the significance of such patterns. Additionally, students should be able to explain how patterns of continuity and change over time relate to larger historical processes and themes. Here again, students are using their understanding of patterns of continuity and change over time to make historical claims. In the end, this is our charge when writing. So let's see how our thesis formula applies. When writing a multi-sentence thesis response to a changes in continuities over time question, you will still begin with the counter-argument followed by the argument and explanation. Only in this case, you are determining whether you have greater evidentiary support for changes or for continuities within the given period. Whichever you have fewer of becomes your counter-argument. Whichever you have the most support for becomes your argument. What follows then is an evaluation of the overall assessment of the time period and the explanation for your historical claim. Let's take a look at an example. Press pause and take a minute to read and think about this changes in continuities over time question. Carefully identify what is being asked. When you're ready to proceed, press play. Let's take a look at a model thesis for this changes in continuities over time question. The first sentence is used to demonstrate a persistent or continual trend. In this case, traditional leaders continuing to focus on economic policies favoring notables. Because we have fewer examples of continuity, this becomes our counter-argument. The second sentence establishes two changes: increased efforts to expand the franchise and social reforms designed to support the growing electorate. The third sentence asserts the overall evaluation with explanation. The period was one of greater change because of the demand for inclusion and support from iconic figures like Jackson. This is a general outline of what a body paragraph would look like. Take note of the way evidence is organized. 3 pieces of evidence make up the paragraph. One example from the beginning, another from the middle, and the last from the end. In doing so, you are demonstrating the continuity or change in the designated period in question. Lastly, your analysis establishes the cause of that pattern. Using the sentence, "This change or continuity occurred because," forces the student to spell out that analysis. Once again, to demonstrate that chronological reasoning, be sure to include specific references to time with each of these examples. Related to, but distinct from understanding patterns of continuity and change over time, is the skill of periodization, in which students describe, analyze, and evaluate different ways that historians divide history into discrete and definable periods. When thinking about these periods, students need to be able to understand continuity and change between different periods. Periodization involves a particular kind of continuity and change. Students who are proficient in periodization should be able to do the following. Explain ways historical events and processes can be organized into discrete, different, and definable historical periods. Evaluate whether a particular event or date could or could not be a turning point between different, definable historical periods when considered in terms of particular historical evidence. And analyze different and/or competing models of periodization. Thus, while students need to consider issues of continuity and change in analyzing different historical periods, they use this skill to develop their own claim about what makes a discrete, definable period in history. Again, this is our charge in writing, creating historical claims. So let's see how our thesis formula applies. When writing a multi-sentence thesis response to a periodization question, you again begin with the counter-argument, followed by the argument and explanation. In this case, you are determining whether you have greater evidentiary support for a turning point or a lack of a turning point. Whichever you have fewer of becomes your counter-argument. Whichever you have the most support for becomes your argument. What then follows is an evaluation of the overall assessment of the possible turning point in question. In the end, once again, students are making historical claims based on these patterns. All right, let's look at another example. Again, press pause and take a minute to read and think about this periodization question. Again, carefully identify what is being asked, and when you're ready to proceed, press play. All right, let's take a look at a model thesis for this periodization question. The first sentence is used to demonstrate a new development, national unity, that lends itself to a possible turning point. Because we have fewer examples of this development, the case for a turning point becomes our counterargument. The second sentence establishes two persisting trends that demonstrate a lack of a turning point: differing regional interests and class conflict. The third sentence makes the case for the overall assessment that there is no new period in American politics. Economic developments caused regional differences to continue, thus we have no turning point. All right, this is a general outline of what a body paragraph would look like. Take note of how the evidence is organized. Three examples, one from before the possible turning point, one from during, and one from after. Lastly, the analysis in the paragraph seeks to thoroughly explain how this evidence proves that the event or era was or was not a turning point. In the end, if your examples demonstrate a change from before, during, and after the event, the case is made for a turning point. If the evidence suggests no change from before, during, and after the event, the case is made for no turning point. As usual, paragraphs should end with a clincher sentence that ties the paragraph to the main argument. Now that we have reviewed both the changes and continuities over time and periodization questions, you should be ready to tackle the DBQ tomorrow. Please bring your notes and questions to class tomorrow, as we will look at the DBQ assignment. Thanks for listening, good luck, and may the force be with you.